Okay, so I just went live for everybody that is joining right now. We should see people. We're waiting for people to join from YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. And if you are, then go ahead and put a comment in the comments in the chat. And we'd love to hear from you. Say hello, tell us where you're at, tell us how your week went. But as you can see from the countdown timer, we've got a few minutes before we'll actually start. And we will see you in a few minutes. All right, so we're at the top of the hour. Everybody should hear me now. And as you can see, we're joined by Brandon Workington. So, hey, Brandon, we'll say hi in just a second. But once again, welcome everybody to another Cutaway Security ICS Friday InfoSec chat. And it's good to see. We should be having people join us from YouTube and LinkedIn. Wes is already on there and saying, hey, Wes, good to see you. Glad you could join us. Take some time. We missed you last week, and we're glad to see you back. So, yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Brandon, hello. How are you, sir? Oh, I bet I still have you muted. Now,
yeah, you
we're fighting the mute button.
You had your music going, and no, I'm going pretty well. Ready for the long weekend for sure.
Excellent. Oh, that's right. That's right. It's we have we've got a 72. We've got Monday is Labor Day, I guess. And
yep.
Yeah.
So for our American people who are lucky enough to have Labor Day off.
And people with jobs at companies and stuff like that, right? Because I'll just be in here probably working and working on something, doing something. So it's but if hopefully everybody has a good long weekend, got some plans to go out of town, do something, maybe barbecue. I'll have to figure it out. Our lawn guys, the people that the family that helps us with our lawn, because I never get to it. I always say I will, but it always gets to about here before I actually do. So we are fortunate to have some people to help us. They just finished, so we've got a nice clean backyard to go back to. So
nice.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and start it off with how we usually do it. Usually I start talking about what we're doing at Cutaway Security, what I was working on this week. Brandon, we'll get to you, and if we get to the topics, we get to the topics. But a few things that I wanted to point out. First of all, Rural Technology Fund, and this is a project that was started by a good friend of mine, Chris Sanders, and he's been doing this for years. It's one of the few things that I actually personally feel that I want to donate to, because you never know actually where your money's going to this project. And what happens is that when you fund this project, if you go out to the Rural Technology Fund Patreon, you can sign up with the to donate a certain dollar amount a month, $2, $5, $10. Obviously, they're really hoping that you'll donate $10. But they've got an influx of about coming up on about $600 a month. And what this goes to just like it in the title, the Rural Technology Fund. He goes out and he purchases equipment for students out at some of those smaller schools that don't necessarily have the funding some of the larger schools will have in some of the urban areas. And he's just making sure that these types of computer technologies are getting to students in these areas. And I think it's a really a valuable effort. I'm willing to, and Cutaway Security is donating to this. And I just wanted to make sure that I pointed it out. Certainly you can go out to the Patreon. The Rural Technology Fund has their own website where they're talking about stuff. But if you're so inclined, I encourage you to talk about this within your organization or you personally. See if you can get some people to fund this. At least let people know about it so they can go do the research and see if they'd like to be involved with it. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So I was just looking when I saw that you were going to talk about that. They were doing a raffle with a bunch of signed books and hacking tools and all that kind of stuff recently, and I'm not finding it right now, but it was maybe a month ago.
Chris does a lot of stuff. He's got his own consultancy. He's got a few people working with them. And I can't remember his site right off the bat. Excuse me. He's got his network books. He's got his honeypot books or deceptions books. I was going to pull it out, but it's under a bunch of stuff. And he also does some low-cost training. There you go. There's his network book right there.
Applied Network Security Monitoring. I tell some mentoring groups that I'm in and stuff. This is the first book I tell them when I talk to them about what I do in terms of network security monitoring. Can't recommend it enough.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. He's done a great job. He knows how to talk about it, and he gets into the science, and that's what I think is really cool, because we can talk about technology all the time, right? We can talk about the best tools to use on something, but especially when we're talking about monitoring, it's about individuals. It's about their individual mindsets. It's about understanding what type of personality can do a certain type of a task better than others, because you do want to assign people with certain skill sets, certain mentalities, whether it's they like to deploy technologies, they like to work off of checkbox lists, to do very specific things, or whether they don't want those boundaries and they want to go do things like threat hunting themselves. Everybody has their own individual capabilities that they're able to, as far as attention span and so forth. And what Chris has really done, and I don't necessarily know that it comes out in that book right there, but if you look at some of his, he's just recently, he's Dr. Sanders now. I should actually refer to him as that, because he's done research and published papers on the mentality of a SOC analyst, and understanding where they're, he's monitored like where your eyes go on the screen. And he's taken people like yourself, Brandon, who's familiar with these types of things, and put them in front of systems with that software, and he'll see what you're doing when you're working with a tool. If you're looking at a PCAP or something like that, he'll see where your eyes are going, because that's what your brain is thinking about. Like the top 5 things that you check, like real quick, you go boom, 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 right? And that's important to understand, because that is what helps focus training for people that are working in this. So we just do it automatically, Brandon. We don't even think about it. Have you ever thought about that?
A little bit, but not to that level. So
Yeah.
in terms of, I know they do that, and my wife is an occupational therapist, and so I've used some eye tracking software that she has access to and stuff, and so some of that is interesting, but I've just kind of like heard her.
Yeah, you haven't delved into.
There's a conference that she goes to every year in Orlando that has a maker day, where we take our family. So they have all those toys on the OT side, assistive technology side.
Oh man, if you got her and Chris in the same room together, oh man, you just sit there. You'd have to sit there and listen, right?
Yeah. So I've never met Chris Sanders, so I only know him from what he's done. The other plug I'll get for him though is he does that Cuckoo's Egg massive course, and I've wanted to do that, like a book club / course based around Cuckoo's Egg, and haven't done that. I know he's done it a few times as kind of like a free course.
So if you find the link for that while we're talking, if you throw it into the course note, or in the course notes,
yeah,
in the chat, that would be awesome. That way we all have it. But yeah, it's I have seen he did a promotion with and I'm going to butcher Cliff Stoll. I believe it's Cliff Stoll, who's the author of the Cuckoo's Age. I could have that wrong, but I believe that's I'm correct. That's one of my favorite books of all time. His mentality and approach, I think, is valuable for anybody that's getting into this type of analysis, threat hunting, and just the mindset that you need to do. So. And then somebody else is talking about, I was thinking about when you were mentioning eye tracking, I've heard of it in context of autism research. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's used in a lot of fields to help understand what people's mindsets are. And, it's absolutely important. So, oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, you don't have access to the StreamYard, so to the other comments. So, I'll put this one here. There we go. So yeah, Chris Sanders has his own training. Highly recommend it. It's some of those smaller training modules, really affordable. And Chris has done a great job with that, mentoring people to develop their own coursewares, and just distributing it through Chris's site. He does a good job with that. So go check that out if you're looking for cost-effective training on all kinds of topics that we talk about. Let's see. So we wanted to, go back to, I'm sharing this already. Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up and talk about that. Other things that we're doing at Cutaway Security, Worked on a ICS concept video with Justin Searle. Just wanted to get with him to talk about some of the differences between the different SANS classes that we put out there. One is the ICS 410 class, and the other is the hosted class. It's not an actual SANS class, but the Assessing Exploiting Control Systems. So that'll be out in a couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll see that soon. Continued some development with the ICS 613, the ICS penetration testing class, working on IT and OT differences and network monitoring. So this is kind of why I was thinking about this, and that came up. And then we just did some other document updates. I did some normal work as well, in addition to the courseware work. So Brandon, can you talk about what you've done this week? What was kind of like your day to day, even if it's not issue specific, but what do you do out there helping people with on the OT side?
So this week I've been working on kind of adding capabilities. One of the tools that, all of the network monitoring tools. I've worked for a couple of different vendors and seen other ones now that I'm not with a vendor. They have ways to like add capabilities and create new alerts and stuff like that. So
what was your challenge? What was your challenge this week? What was your big challenge this week?
The first one was kind of in devices should talk only to the controller and not to each other. And so looking at kind of alerting and providing more insight, more so than just, oh, this endpoint talked to this endpoint, but trying to get a little more value when you get an alert for that, what it was, what happened in that communication and that kind of thing. So kind of taking those kind of basic ability to generate alerts and kind of expand that and make it more, provide more value with it. So
when I'm hearing that what I'm taking from that in my own way of explaining it is that you have several devices that are out down at the process level. And they're doing Ethernet-based communications between them, and so the controller should be only communicating with very specific things, whether it's endpoints or whether it's the management servers up in the level 3, and you're detecting when that occurs, and then reviewing it to determine whether or not that was a behavior that just wasn't in your baseline, that is legitimate, or it's something that needs a deeper dive, somebody that understands the process to see if this is suspicious and even malicious. Would that be kind of accurate?
Yeah, and then to expand on it with on the network monitoring side, with our use case, we can have multiple monitoring points on the network, and so like see, does the command come from the controller? And then is the same command going down to the endpoint, or is it being modified in transit? Like if somebody gets on a switch or something and does that. And so
what industrial sector are we talking about? Because that level of granularity down at the process level is impressive, and I don't see it very
often. Utilities. So
okay,
energy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, energy utilities. Yeah, I mean that which makes sense. They usually have the teams and the funding that can do, but even for utility, that's impressive that they're getting to that level of implementation around event tracking and event tracking, monitoring, alerting, and response. Because every single one of those is slightly different. And it takes a village to do all of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's I like that. I'm glad that I'm hearing. I'm glad that I've verbally got a good example of that this can be done. It is being done within organizations, hopefully successfully. But that's really on you, right?
I'm working on it, so maybe not. But who knows? When I was talking to the client about this, and we talked about kind of the use cases, and I was like, okay, well, this first use case, I can do that. The more advanced ones, I'm not a programmer, and it's like it's getting up on my I might be able to do that, or I might need to call out more help from actual developers of the tool. So,
Interesting. That's it.
but
Yeah, that's interesting. That's yeah. It's I can see where it gets to, especially in this environment, how young it is and associated with the type of things that you're talking about. I can see people going, okay, that's enough. I've got you're giving me more. I've got all this other stuff to do, and now you're just kind of piling it on. Now at this point, you're piling it on, right? So kudos to you for continuing that process. So what's your experience around that?
uh, I guess I have a hard time, but also like to know where my limit is and
Mhm.
be able to do that. And so I mean, this goes more one of the things I care about is like mental health and mental health hackers and that kind of thing, like that. And I have a really hard time uh, on my own self telling people, "Oh, that's too much. I can't do that," rather than piling it on myself. But I have a really easy time telling other people, "Hey, you need to be willing to speak up in that kind of situation."
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what that makes me think about. So, but yeah, that kind of
Well,
knowing where your strengths are and where you need to reach out for more. Uh,
and it
for
all
me,
boils
it's a
down.
developer thing. Like I'm not a programmer. I can
Mhm.
kind of hack my way around some scripts and stuff, but I'm not an actual programmer. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
where the level comes from me. So
It would be really cool to get in to actually see what you're like, the alerts that you're talking about and the correlations, and getting. I mean, because that's extremely important at that level. That's where we're asking people to be. That's when we're saying that, hey, if first of all, especially that in between the modification of the commands in between, if that's going on, the threat actors are in the worst place. That they've already got the access, and they're in the worst place. But we do need to know what's going on at that level. But yeah, it would be really interesting to see that correlation, see those detections, and so forth. So I'm really excited for you. Wow, that sounds like a fun week, man. Um, so let's see what we got going on here during the week. So a couple people talked to me, or I was monitoring some of the threads that Brandon and I monitor, and we were going through I'm trying to see if I can add it to the stream. We were talking about, and I talk a lot about vulnerabilities and knowing about vulnerabilities. Recently, and I don't know how new this is. I think it's fairly new that CISA KEV, the known exploited vulnerabilities. They're putting that list out there for that to help people understand how to prioritize some of the risks, like Brandon was just talking about, detecting that exploitation of vulnerabilities, whether it's known protocols or whether it's actual vulnerabilities in the products, and so CISA is putting out the information. Hey, threat actors, we see threat actors. We're getting PCAPs. We're getting alerts back from people that these vulnerabilities are being attacked within those networks. So it's really good to see that information out there, but it's also needs to be taken with a grain of salt. And that's what the second link is right there. That CISA catalog lacks accountability for that specific CVE. The CVE 2021 38406. Somebody made a write-up in that they didn't understand why they had included a specific vulnerability because it technically wasn't being exploited. And so it's a great write-up. So, take a screenshot, go out
that
there.
Attacker KB article
Mhm.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think the same person who put it in you as I saw it
Mhm.
from them as well, and read it this morning. Maybe is when I
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
it.
exactly, and that's why I
Uh,
added it. So just the
and
reverse
and
engineering aspect and determining what the developers did to obfuscate the information within their binary was pretty interesting. So it looks like
well,
we have a question at Brandon, or Wes has a question for Brandon. Brandon, question. That level of monitoring is impressive. I would love to hear how they got that level of visibility. I don't know if you can see that on there, Brandon. So you have
Yeah.
the,
Well, so for this client, this project is actually part of a uh, uh, adding a software defined networking capabilities, and so using those software defined network makes it a lot easier to kind of get those multiple levels of feeds, because you can see everything is self-contained, and everything is, you're not running on a 15-year-old switch that you're hoping you can get a span port off of. So a lot of times it does take something like that where you actually need the capabilities to be able to see that out in the out at the end level at the out at the locations. And yeah, if it was uh, a a brownfield site that had 10 to 15-year-old switches and stuff, it would probably be a lot more difficult to do that kind of thing. Uh, and the other thing is the operations side at this company really sees the value in cybersecurity as well. That
yeah,
is probably the number one criteria that makes it so that you can do that kind of thing, get
absolutely.
that kind of
Yeah,
visibility. Is that the people on the operations, and this is what I talk to. Uh, when I talk to people coming into the ICS, I talk about that all the time. There's somebody at the plant who, if you're a security person and you're coming in and you have something you want to do, there's somebody at the plant or at the location or at who can just say no. Who they can just say no, this is not happening, and for no reason or a good reason or a bad reason, and they have that level of authority because they're from the operation side. And on the flip side of that, when they see the value of cybersecurity, and they see the value that visibility and monitoring can bring, uh, there's nothing better than having that kind of person on the operation side uh,
absolutely.
for it.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, we have to. That's the challenge, especially from a consultant coming into some of these organizations. Obviously, they've hired they've hired us to come in and assist, but it takes a champion, right? It takes a champion that's respected within that organization, so that the operators and the engineers and stuff like that, they're willing to go down this path as well. So, and as you can see, Wes, thank you for the insight there as well. So, yeah, but it definitely takes a champion to get these projects moving forward, see them through completion, and continue forward. Because there, a lot of people just think, all right, well, especially in this environment, they're used to like, okay, we'll just deploy it. Okay, it's working, let it run. And while they do understand the ongoing maintenance and stuff like that, but typically, some of what we do or the security controls, it's more maintenance than they're used to. I would kind of think is that kind of an experience? Would that be accurate, or am I off a little bit?
Uh, it uh, yeah, it like every location is different, I think.
Yeah,
So
really, yeah.
yeah, I think that can be uh, uh, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So, so we talked about the vulnerabilities, and thanks for going through with that. Some of the, something else that you might be used to. I'm kind of actually glad you joined this one. Some of the things I was working on today. I took a look at Malcolm, or at least, well, I tried to take a look at Malcolm. I downloaded, I installed all of the. So I downloaded the GitHub. I ran the Docker installs. I got it running on my system, and well. I don't know if I actually got it running. I started it. Let's just say I started it. I got to a point where I could upload a PCAP to it, and it just it stopped responding. And that's not Malcolm's issue. That's me trying to install it on my on my laptop. Basically in a VM. It was in a container. But I don't have the processing power on this laptop to do it. And Malcolm actually says it when you go look at the documentation. They want 16 cores. They want 16 gigabytes of RAM just to, and that's not even really Malcolm's requirements. That's more of the Elasticsearch stack, the ELK stack that they've got going on there. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to throw this up into a DigitalOcean or something like that, because I don't have anything in this house that even has that. And it just it does kind of aggravate me a little bit. I understand the need and the requirement, but Security Onion and Malcolm, basically you have to buy hardware to actually run it. So have you been running into that? Have you done anything with that?
Oh, yeah. And I made a comment to you when we were talking about this in a chat. Uh, every tool I've seen that does live traffic analysis, memory is by far the most critical uh, hardware requirement.
Mhm.
And they sometimes go pretty high, especially when you're doing live PCAP analysis and the ability to ingest traffic and try to do that.
That's the part that aggravates me, is because I have I mean I maybe have 100 megabytes, or maybe a gigabyte worth, and it's in a PCAP file. That's all I want to analyze, right? I
So
want to get all of these excellent capabilities and
yeah,
just look at this one file.
yeah.
So
And one of the companies I used to work with, you could we had an internal tool that was below the recommended uh, stuff, that like if you tried to actually install it on this system on the system in a normal way, it would just say no, I can't do it because it
no,
didn't meet the requirements.
no,
Because when
because
you're
I
doing
don't want to support, and basically it's support things like
uh,
no, because I don't want to support
when
these
you're selling a
questions.
tool too, you from the vendor side, you always want to have a little bit of fudge factor extra, because it's a lot easier to deal with support questions that don't happen. And so if you can avoid those by making uh, taking what you need and then kind of put in a fudge factor a little bit extra,
Mm.
and make it less likely to get those support calls. Every vendor is going to do that, I think. And so
Right. And
uh,
and I do wish that some of the, I mean, like Dragus, Nozomi, all of the vendors that do this type of analysis, taking information from the network, I really wish that they would come up with a consultant box, right? It's something that you
yeah,
can do.
that's
I
what,
mean,
so we had a VM, an OVA file that was lower specs that we used for our demos and stuff like that, so that we could do it on a laptop if we needed to. Uh, that uh, that it 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 worked for what we needed it,
mhm.
but it wasn't what you would want to go put out into a live system. So it wasn't something that was like
Right. Yeah. You're
publicly
not deploying an environment,
available.
but that's that
That
is
yeah,
an excellent thing for me as a consultant, because I do want those, the capabilities, the capabilities like, drawing a network map,
mhm,
demonstrating a flow, and being able to filter on some of those, that flow information, getting asset lists with that are already pre-populated with the known version numbers and stuff like that. I mean, I can write scripts all day to do that, but usually, depending on the deployment and stuff like that, I'm going to be customizing that at the different areas, and that takes some time. It takes a lot of troubleshooting and stuff like that. So it would be nice to have some of these tools that are, as a consultant box. Obviously, there's got to be a fee around it, but I really haven't seen anything from those vendors that I was just talking about to do it. I can get Malcolm up and running in a DigitalOcean, but do my clients really want me to send my PCAPs up into the cloud? The good thing is that I would own that resource, but it's still going to be like the utilities that you're talking about. They're going to be like, no, you can't do that.
yeah,
You don't own the hardware. So
yeah. I had one of my when I did work for the network security monitor, and actually now I have a great boss now who I have a Dell R440, I think is what I have now, that he bought for that he buys for all of us consultants, uh, so that we can have our labs set up. I One of my former employers, they bought Intel NUC Nooks.
Nux, yeah.
For all the sales engineers. That was a kind of a I don't know if I'd call it low cost, but a lower cost way.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the specs, for the specs that I just talked about, they're still not there yet. I mean,
it was.
I think they're
I
getting
think it was
really
still
close,
pushing
but
$1,000, and this was
yeah,
a
and
couple
then
of years
so
ago.
being cost effective isn't really, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so I'm just I'm trying to figure out that myself. And with only having a few clients that are doing this, it's difficult for me to kind of justify the expense when I may or may not use it for like every 6 months, and then I have to maintain it, and then all of that. So yeah, definitely is a challenge. I just wish somebody would give me a box that I can run all this stuff on. All right, man. Yeah, so we're at the bottom of the hour. That's been our 30 minutes. Brandon, what thoughts would you like to leave everybody with on for Labor Day weekend?
Read that Attack KB or Attacker KB article that was linked. The way they worked through how a CV vulnerability that wasn't getting exploited got pushed out by CISA, and I mean that's a big thing because there's multiple critical infrastructure organizations that if CISA pushes out that known exploited vulnerabilities list, they are responding within 24 hours to
They're
identify it.
prioritizing that. They're prioritizing that.
They're prioritizing it, and I mean, I don't know anything about the background, but it looked like Palo Alto had a typo in a report, and that report got pulled out by CISA, and the typo got pushed down by CISA, and Palo Alto pulled back the report, but it never got pulled back by CISA as of when the blog was posted. There's some great shade in that blog as well. Some great little comments that as somebody who loves sarcasm.
And I like it, just the fact that they got it out there. So we do have a comment from a LinkedIn user. I don't want to ignore it. I did for the YouTube. Unfortunately for the LinkedIn, you're not going to see the comments when we post it. The YouTube team will. So you can go out and check the YouTube comment streams a little bit later. But as far as the network map creation, I was working with BruteShark. And that's why I threw the slides back up real quick down there at the very last link. BruteShark does that. There's some other tools that do it as well. I was trying to test BruteShark this week, and I was happy because I actually took a PCAP and I was able to pull some challenges out and run them through Hashcat and actually crack some passwords, or at least brute force it. And it was so that was pretty cool. But I was looking to BruteShark to actually do some of the mapping stuff, and I didn't get it working on the Windows that I installed it on. So that would be whoever the user was, because it just says LinkedIn user to me here. Whoever was out there, hopefully you can see that link right there.
I know there's something from something that will take a CSV and build it in Visio as well. Mm-hmm. And so, because I have a coworker who's working to kind of automate that process in the middle of it. So, but it's not a one-click thing. It's he's put in some time into.
And actually, the BruteShark, I mean, I really want to get the BruteShark working because it creates a JSON file that can be imported into like a Neo4j, and it contains that data flow information so that you can not only are you seeing the nodes, you're also seeing the communications between the endpoints and how they're communicating. So I'm really looking forward to doing that a little bit better. And certainly it's going to be one of the things that I want to write up for the class. I think that's an important aspect of it. All right, we've gone a little bit over. Not that I mind. I love talking to you, Brandon. I like answering the questions from everybody in the chat. So if you're joining us from YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, thanks once again for showing up on a Friday afternoon, kicking your weekend off right with the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Info. So Infosec chat. We will definitely be back next weekend. Monday's the holiday, not Friday, so we will see you. So have a great weekend. Enjoy your 72. Get some barbecue done. Get outside. Brandon, thanks again for joining us one more time.
Thanks for hosting these, Don. Love all the service you do for the industry.
Excellent. Well,
you can't get enough.
I couldn't do it without y'all. So thank you very much. Other than that, thanks everybody. Have a great time.